Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to objectively unpack something really fascinating today. We are looking at a framework that originally comes from a lecture given back in September 2010, and it does something you don't see very often. It completely blends spiritual metaphysics with hardcore real-world business strategy. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a manager, or honestly, just someone looking to optimize your own personal growth, this framework gives us a highly structured and definitely unconventional lens for looking at financial prosperity. We're going to explore the core concepts of attracting infinite wealth, but more importantly, we're going to look at the active, intentional measures required to keep financial ruin far, far away from your life.
Based on the text Prosperity Thinking, we're going to keep a specific image in our minds today: a brilliant, flawless diamond. Why a diamond? Well, in this framework, it's not just an aesthetic choice. It perfectly represents the bright, multifaceted, and incredibly resilient spirit that the author says we all need. It's really about forging a mindset that is totally unbreakable, even under massive pressure. So hold on to that diamond metaphor as we navigate through the rest of these philosophies.
So, here's how we're breaking it down today. We'll start with the enlightenment of wealth, move right into identifying and expelling the poverty god. Then we'll transition into the essence of appreciated wealth, and finally, wrap the whole thing up with how to maintain a bright and positive mind.
All right, let's jump right into part one, the enlightenment of wealth, or believing in miracles.
You know, usually when we talk about wealth attraction, we're thinking about spreadsheets, minimizing overhead, calculating ROI, right? The usual business grind. But according to this author's framework, mastering the law of wealth attraction is fundamentally categorized as a type of spiritual enlightenment. The text argues that to truly attract wealth, you've got to first reach a realization where you genuinely believe in the miracle of wealth attraction. It is a total paradigm shift. If you're looking at wealth accumulation as this purely mechanical, by-the-numbers process, you're missing the energetic component entirely. The framework insists that this deep-seated belief, this literal enlightenment, is the mandatory first step before any physical wealth can actually manifest in your life.
Moving on to Section 2, expelling the poverty god and identifying the spiritual threat.
Now this is where things get really interesting. The text actually personifies financial failure as a literal spiritual entity. It posits that this god of poverty is a highly destructive force, and get this, it doesn't just limit itself to possessing vulnerable individuals. This negative spiritual entity has massive scale. It can infect entire corporate entities, dragging down company morale and completely tanking profitability. The text even says it can cast a shadow over macroeconomic systems and entire nations. By framing poverty this way, the stakes are elevated instantly. Financial ruin isn't just brushed off as bad luck or bad math, it's portrayed as an active, aggressive spiritual threat that you have to forcefully expel.
So what exactly is this poverty god? Well, this perfectly illustrates the core conflict of the text. The true identity of this entity is described as the culmination of dark spiritual vibrations. Specifically, it mentions the lingering despair of bankrupt or even suicidal managers who completely succumb to failure. These dark vibrations actively seek out matching negative mindsets. But, in stark contrast, we have the countermeasure: respected figures who radiate positive wavelengths and success. The idea is that you are constantly caught between these two frequencies, and you have to actively protect yourself from those dark vibrations of despair.
So how do you actually shield yourself from that? To prevent being possessed by this metaphorical or even literal poverty, the text says you have to be incredibly intentional about your influences. You must correctly choose someone you deeply respect, maybe a successful mentor, a historical figure, or a thriving business leader, and then intentionally tune your personal wavelength to match theirs. Think of your mind like an old-school radio dial. If you tune into fear and failure, you attract the poverty god. It's just that simple. But if you tune into the frequency of those you respect, you align yourself with prosperity.
Let's pivot to Section 3, the essence of appreciated wealth and the practical applications of capital.
This is a really vital pivot in the framework. It takes these heavy spiritual theories and grounds them in intensely practical capitalism. The text emphasizes that the true essence of wealth relies heavily on service and gratitude. It effectively links capitalist success with profound societal contribution. Wealth, in this specific view, is absolutely not about hoarding resources or ruthless extraction. Not at all. It is the natural, physical byproduct of being genuinely useful to a massive number of people and generating widespread appreciation.
To really ground this, the author gives us a perfect case study: Singapore Airlines. Let's trace how this works. It all starts with a specific action:
providing unparalleled excellent service, which of course Singapore Airlines is globally famous for. That action naturally generates a profound result, immense customer gratitude. And it's that gratitude that naturally attracts the outcome, which is wealth accumulation. But the cycle doesn't just stop there. The framework insists on an ultimate purpose. The money gathered through this appreciation must then be reinvested for the greater good of society. It creates this beautiful, continuous, positive feedback loop that the poverty god simply cannot penetrate.
This brings us to our final section, a bright and positive mind and the historical anchors for success.
So how do we maintain this high-frequency wavelength day in and day out? Well, the framework brings together philosophies from both the East and the West to give us a step-by-step navigational guide for our mindset. Step 1 draws on Sonto Kuninomiya, the prominent 19th century Japanese agricultural leader. His philosophy tightly connects the act of diligent studying and moral self-improvement directly with making money and agricultural success. Then Step 2 brings in American author Napoleon Hill. The text advises using Hill's famous positive maxims as a mental compass to navigate through any doubt you might face. By combining Ninomiya's diligent, moral study with Hill's relentless positivity, you reach Step 3, cultivating ultimate psychological and spiritual resilience. Ultimately, keeping that god of poverty away requires forging a spirit that embodies 3 exact traits. It needs to be bright, it needs to be positive, and it absolutely must be resilient. Which brings us right back to that diamond we talked about at the very beginning of this explainer. Remember, a diamond is formed under immense, crushing pressure, yet it reflects light brilliantly and is incredibly hard to break. This text argues that your mind has to be the exact same way. When economic downturns hit or business failures are looming, a bright and positive spirit reflects those dark vibrations away, keeping your wealth and your ability to contribute to society completely secure.
I want to leave you with one final thought to reflect on today. If prosperity truly comes down to matching the frequency of those who succeed and actively repelling the dark vibrations of despair, you really have to ask yourself, whose wavelength are you tuning your mindset to today? Are you letting in the static of the poverty god, or are you dialing into the brilliance of a diamond? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this framework gives you a powerful and maybe completely new perspective on attracting wealth.